Kayden and Decadence, what are they? Well, I'm glad you asked. You're about to find out. Now, if you went into a shop to have a look at a pair of wheels, you'd have a good old sticky beak at them, and that's what we're going to give you in this video today. You can also do that at Sydney, San Sebastian and Los Angeles, but today we want to run through the top questions we get asked, with the number one question being, how does Kayden compare? And by the end of the video, you'll be able to answer that for yourself. Now, the most important thing about a carbon wheel is, you guessed it, the carbon rim, which is why I've got a lot of cut up rims here. I've got a heap of my own, which I QC here and cut up every 50th rim. I've also got some other brands. First thing I want to start off with is the nipple patching, and that involves thickening out the area, as you can see in here, where the nipple goes into the rim. And then in between the span, you can see here, here's a thick section, but here is a thin section in between. Here's where a nipple is, that's a thick section. So what you're doing is you're saving weight safely by going thick, thin, and you're helping the structure of the wheel right where it's critical. Sounds simple, but there's only a few mountain bike companies that do it, and not many road companies at all. I only know of 3 myself. The second part is the clincher hook formation. This is a rim that's come out of the mold and hasn't been finished or cut. You've got the preformer inside the rim, and you can see where that goes in here. I'll put that back in. That gets cut when it's taken out of the mold, and then they pull out the mandrel hoop, or this nylon hoop inside the wheel, and that's how you get the gap in here to put your tire. So when you look at this, I'll show you one of these as an example. So that then there is how it would be in the mold. There's a lot of companies that still haven't moved to it. I moved to it 5 years ago now, and it totally transforms the way the clincher hook is formed and reduces air bubbles. Effectively, this hoop here is wound under load with a carbon tape. Now, when you wind this under load, there is no chance of air bubbles. They're wound at 45. There's 2 rollers which go around this whole hoop, and then you create a clincher hook that is pre-formed already before it goes in the mold. Versus this type of wheel here, which this is a very, very expensive brand. I've taped over the edges, so I'm not going to show you which brand it is, but this is a mold butt formed rim. And as you can see here, you've got a lot of voids in the rim section there. That's because this type of formation, this type of molding, needs the bladder inside to push against this section here to create the shape, which is a very complex shape and not easy to do. So effectively this is laid up and put into the mold, and then 4 bits are pushed around the edge of the mold to create the clincher hook circle. And then this is what you end up with. A lot of voids sitting inside here, comparably to that type of formation. Now I hope you can see that on the camera there, and you can see how perfect all these fibers line up comparably to this. The other big thing here, the material around the nipple on mine is 3.3 millimeters thick. This wheel here is 1.98. So it's a third thinner in the most critical part of the rim. This is where major structural failures and wheel collapses will occur. Always a shatter straight down the nipple hole area, down the edge of the rim, which is why I nipple patch these, because then you've reinforced where you really need it, but you're saving weight in between. This is another very expensive wheel. This client brought this over to me. He'd had 2 of these fail in under 2 years. The side section in the wheel is way too thin. So this rim layup here has 4 layers instead of the 7 layers I have on the side. And you can see what happens here when it gets pushed. There was no major impact here, but it totally shattered the side here. And that's avoidable. These are cheap and nasties. You can see here, this one's heat failed. The curvature going up the edge there is where the tire pressure has pushed out that side of the wheel. And you can see the voids, etc. in the molding. You can see how these fibers here, they're very pliable. This is another wheel, another cheapie. You can see they're using an expanding material insert on the side, right in the critical area where all the brake heat is. They've got this material here, which is not very strong at all. They've had to reinforce the hook with a steel wire to try and create some strength in there and stop massive split failures. This is my tubular here. You can see how thick and even that material is, and then you can see this one here is quite thin. Now this one here also had a failure down the edge of the valve hole because this wasn't reinforced. Effectively the wheel flexed and it cracked down here and it cracked down there. Around my valve holes I do a similar reinforcement patch to this, which stops those type of failures occurring. Perfectly brand new rim. This one here is about to be cut. So we want to usually do that in 2 spots, here, in between, and then on the valve hole, which is over here. So effectively, I'll just show you, that's a brand new rim. You could ride that all day long, and I don't like doing this, but this is what will happen. I'll take this out the back obviously later, and that will be cut straight through that section there. And this is the reason why you want a wheel builder who builds in-house, because building wheels, surprisingly enough, is not that hard. This stuff, maintaining QC, maintaining process, making sure rims are stable in the mold, making sure all the nipple patches are being hit by the drill rig correctly, give you a really strong, structural, healthy wheel. Now, if you've looked at my website, you'll realize that I've got a huge amount of sizes. A lot of companies these days will offer a small range of sizes, say 4 depths, and only 1 hook type. For me, multiple hook types are a must because some people want tubular. In Europe, I sell 70% tubular. In Australia, I don't sell near that, probably 3%. Clincher versus tubeless is a big one for me as well. I meaningfully separated out my clincher range to the tubeless range so people can choose either or. There's a lot of pros for and against for both, but one of the big ones is getting tires on and off easily. Both of mine will be easier than the majority to get tires on and off, but tubeless in general are harder to get tires on and off. So I keep the standard clincher option, which a lot of people come and buy wheels off me for. They'll be out with their friends and have a major issue with a tire when they're stuck out in the middle of nowhere, and then they'll speak to one of their friends who has my wheels and they'll say, we don't have that. They'll ring me up and go, hey, my friend told me I can get tires on and off your wheels really easily, can I come get a pair? So having a choice for people is a really cool thing. If you want tubeless, it's over there, but only 3-5%, if that, of people I speak to are using tubeless. So there's 95% that are stuck using something that's not exactly what they're looking for. I'm not hassling tubeless, I ride it all the time. I've got full tubeless range. I spent a lot of extra money on developing the molds and making them, so it's there if you want it. But the standard clincher is so easy to use. Same with tubulars. A lot of pro racers love riding tubulars. You look at the majority of pro teams, 80-90% are still on tubbies. So you can't tell me that those guys aren't testing the absolute arse out of everything and they're still choosing that. So what I want to offer, should I say, is full end-to-end of everything. I also have the full TT disc, some of the lightest TT discs on the planet, and I also have the new tri-spoke that's just come out. It's a 74mm deep beast of a tri-spoke, very, very fast wheel. I also do all these wheels in a specific disc brake only layups, so they have not only a different layup but a different resin system. I'll show you here so you can see. The color of this is darker because this is a high temp resin system, whereas this is a low temp resin system. The layup doesn't have the extra material around the brake track, so you can save a little bit of weight on these to compensate for the bigger hubs and more spokes, and that evens out the weight between rim brake and disc brake. A lot of big companies, I was actually at the Vuelta having a look at some of the new brands, some of the new teams that are on disc brake, had brake tracks all the way around the rim, and the layup of the drilling of the rim didn't even match the hub flange direction, so they just used their standard rim even though it was being laced in with a hub that wasn't matching its hole pattern. Again, I'm not a big company and I still know not to do that, so pretty straightforward. you make specific wheels for specific applications, and if I can offer exactly what you look for, you're more likely to choose me. Now that's a lot of upfront cost initially, but in the long run, I know that I'm the smallest company with this range of wheels. There's only a few companies out there that do end-to-end like I do. So I really hope you find what you're looking for. Okay, hub, spokes and nipples. We've got the Decadence hub and the Kadon hub. Now, we do not skimp on the Kadon range. Kadon range gets a great hub. It also gets the same spoke and nipple as the Decadence range. The only difference is in weight saving. This hub here you can see is a straight pull hub, whereas this one is a J-bend hub. Again, functionally, you will not notice the difference. The J-bend, for example, most mountain bike companies still use it. Durability is great. There's no issues with that. It's really just a bit of weight saving you can achieve with the straight pull spoke and a couple of other small variations. The spokes themselves, both CX Ray, you can see the J-bend spoke here and the straight pull spoke here. Straight pull spoke is that because it pulls straight. It goes in here like so, and you can see there that is pulling straight. J-bend spoke goes in here like so, and then it pulls with a J at the end. There is no skimping on the Kadon range. Both get these very expensive Sapim CX Ray spokes, and most importantly, this awesome little nipple here. Now, those little guys there have a very interesting function at the end of them. Instead of most nipples stopping right here at the end of the head, these have another 8 to 10 threads past that point, so you get more purchase on the back end of the nipple. There's no chance of that nipple head ripping off. So when the spoke goes into the nipple, instead of it only having thread to this point here, so if there's any corrosion in the back, the heads can rip off after a few years. There is zero chance of that happening. So this is one of the main areas where I've seen spoke breakage over the year. Totally avoidable, great setup. The Decadence hub, which is a 3D forged 7075 aluminium, that is a very exotic material, and you need that to go this light. Now in saying that, they're just as durable as the Kadon ones. There is no difference in the weight specs on both of the wheels. This hub here was an existing hub, but don't think I didn't stuff with it. I changed all the tolerances inside. The key factor of a hub, the deflection comes from the axle, the end caps and the axle. The hub shells don't flex. This area here, you'll notice on mine, is not beefy and oversized. It doesn't need to be. What's beefy and oversized is the axle and very aggressive thread line up on the end cap going into the axle. So there's no movement at all through there. I never use slide on end caps like a lot of companies do. The slide on end cap after about 3,000, 5,000 K will start to move because it's able to slip on and off. It has to be able to move. Whereas I use an aggressive thread which stops that and keeps a dead straight line through the axle, stopping flexion and premature bearing wear. The one other difference that the Decadence wheels get is the bullet balance opposite the valve. This helps keep the flywheel effect and balance your wheel, a bit like the lead weights on your car. If you didn't have those lead weights, your steering wheel would shake and your fuel consumption wouldn't be as good. Much more important on a bicycle because the front wheel moves so much. If you haven't had the death wobbles yet, you're probably not riding fast enough, and you inevitably will get them at some stage if you do go quick enough and get an oscillation set up in the wheel, a wind gust or a bad bit of road, etc. This really helps reduce the chances of that happening opposite the valve. So you can see that there. It's hidden. You're not going to notice it except when you're going nice and quick and your wheel feels stable and doesn't keep oscillating after you get a gust. So the wheel just calms down and behaves itself. They're a physical bullet head. I have 4 different sizes to match the different depths. I weld a section on the back here. It's all been hand filed down, so there's no chance of any tube issues. And it's a very good discreet outer rim placement of a weight to keep you going nice and straight. If you're tossing up between the two, there's no difference in profit margin for Kadon or Decadence for me. It's purely the cost of the manufacturing difference to do the hubs and the nipple patching in the rim. So I try to keep them both very affordable and close in pricing because that's what they cost. So even though I end up selling 80 to 90% Decadence, there's a lot of people that ride Kaden out there and absolutely love them. Very good all-round wheel, so there's no issue with ordering either model. Now, the magic ingredient, hand building in-house and never machine build. I don't say that lightly because I could save a lot of money if I didn't build in-house, but we will never do that purely because of the fact it is the best final QC process. You lace the wheel, every single hole is inspected, every single nipple alignment, spoke alignment, lacing pattern, tensions, feel of the rim, parallel of the rim when you're truing it, you can see that very easily. All those things are missed in a machine building environment because they can't see. And they don't want to see either. They're incentivized on how many units they get out the door, not finding errors. It will actually lose them money to spot an error because that's not what they're remunerated on. So for me and Kaden, we always build in-house, especially because we have 4-axis offset drilling, which means these holes are all different angles to make sure that spoke lines up, and you can't do that unless you're doing it by hand. All the best race wheels in the world are made by hand, and nothing in my price range is usually made by hand. So what you're getting with us is in-house hand-built wheels that are totally checked. This 2-to-1 spoke ratio as well, the major difference. It's the biggest structural change you can make to a rear wheel, keeps everything balanced perfectly. And when you're using Sapim CX-Rays with their own tension meters, calibrated Sapim tension meters, you can get all those perfect, so there's no overstressing of the components. Everything works in together and behaves, and the wheel will stay true and won't stress the rim or have a potential error that wasn't spotted. In the videos for every single wheel size, they'll soon be on the site. So, you go to the 25 page, will be a video for that wheel. For the 49, there'll be live weighings on every wheel to prove they're not claim weights, because we're as light as some of the most exotic wheels on the planet, and that's actual. So super wide aero shapes. All these wheels fit 25 wheels. There's a lot of wheels out there claiming they're super aero and they're 24 mil wide. A pretty easy rule of thumb for aero: if you are not as wide as the tire and the tire bulges out around the edge of the wheel, that is not aero. If you're sitting on a plane, you look out the plane wing and there's a lump at the end of the wing, that plane ain't flying. So a critical factor to keep a wheel nice and aero is simply have it wide enough so the tire fits into the profile and the wheel is nice and smooth, which our wheels do. They're all my own molds. They're not wonky open molds. I meaningfully made these 49, for example, instead of 50. So there's a 1 millimeter difference, and people couldn't say they were an open mold because open molds really get wonky. The parallel, the track goes out because they get thousands of rims thrown through them. We have great stiffness and durability. So that 2-to-1 spoking, as I discussed before, and all the drill patterns lining up to exactly to the nipple, etc. Stiff, even though it's a light hub, very, very stiff little hub. And we also do one of the longest warranties. Now that is not an asterisk ridden warranty. Have a look at our warranty page. It is very clear. We do not piss people off. We just look after you. If there is any issue, it gets resolved like that. There's no problems, there's no animosity. Check my reviews, you'll see that's a fact. The flywheel balance for the Decadence wheels is awesome. I do not like death wobbles. We've got some nice crash scars here from a death wobble with an open flange wheel as well years ago. All those things are avoidable. I've been building wheels for 20 years now and I know how to stop catastrophic failures. Again, don't say that lightly. We want to look after you. We want to make sure you're safe, riding and happy. Braking used to be a real issue with carbon wheels. We spent more time on the rim layup schedules around the braking than anything else. These wheels brake beautifully, and I'm not just saying that. They have a dead flat surface here that sheets water off and you get full pad contact. Texture on a carbon braking surface is the enemy. That captures water in the weaves especially, and the water can't escape for longer, a dozen or more rotations and the wheel's still wicking water out of itself and causing slippage. That's all avoided. The heat temperature resistance in these is through the roof. As you see in my reviews, no heat failures. Again, I don't say that a lot. I spent a huge amount of money moving to this factory, and that was one of the key reasons for it. So in saying all that, you're getting a wheel of this level for less than half the price of anything even near its quality direct from a wheel builder whose number one priority is to look after you. There are no distributors, there are no retailers blocking service. We want you guys to keep riding and happy. Get on the site, you can order a pair of these very easily. If there's any questions, you come directly to me or Rich and we'll go through all that information with you. And before you know it, you'll be riding them like Seabiscuit.